Okay, so welcome everyone. This is Natalia. I am the country lead from Mexico, and I will be leading this summit conversation with Ashley. And she's a country lead from the US, or one of the country leads from the US. And well, this conversation will be about diversity and also about intergenerational. Intergenerational diversity. Okay, so before we start, I will ask you all to turn on your cameras if it's possible for you, so that we have a little check-in of the group and to get to know how's everything going with everyone, and so that we get, this is the third day of the 100 Summit, like it's a weighted event for most of us. So my first question will have to be answered from 1 to 10. 10 is the top and 1 is the less. So I will be first asking you, how is your level of energy in this moment? Yeah, I will go. Yes, I have in the chat also. I have some 8. Yes, some 7. Good. Great. By now, I know you have joined some other conversations, so I want to ask you, have you got inspired by the sessions you joined by now? Oh, yes, the session was so early, first session, I know. Yes, we have it, yes. Okay, and now, just about our topic, this question will be answered with yes and no, okay? So, have you joined groups with a diversity of age? I'll say yes. Good. We have, do you feel comfortable speaking with older or younger people? Good, good. And I'll ask you the very last question. Does it make you curious to hear to someone else's history? Yes, good. Okay, so welcome to this conversation about diversity. I will head it now to Ashley. Yes.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. So great to see everyone and to be here. And we're going to have a great talk today. We're going to have a great We're going to have a great talk today, and we're going to be talking a bit about intergenerational diversity. So what I would love is for people to put their thoughts, definitions, anything that comes to mind when they hear the term intergenerational diversity, because it's not used often. It's a term that's becoming more popular, but as of now, it's still not taught a lot in schools. So if you could put in the chat general thoughts you have, feelings, definitions, anything that you can think of when you hear the term intergenerational diversity. And we'll give you a minute or two to put that in there. Okay. Very good. These are great. Oh, this is excellent. These are great. So if you can see some of the chat here, people have some great responses. They have teams, communities, environments that include people from different age groups. For example, kindergarten age groups interacting with people from a retiree home in a project on reading. School communities as opposed to school for students are natural intergenerational gatherings. That's great. Mix of ages together in a group. All of these are wonderful answers. And there's so many things that come to mind. And if you want to keep putting some things in the chat, that would be great. But I want to initially start here by giving a framework for intergenerational diversity, and how we can really use this term when we're thinking about education. The first thing that I want to say here is that when we talk about intergenerational, that term, we're talking about a wide range of generations, and these generations really can create sustainable, innovative work environments. So when the term intergenerational diversity first came about, it was talking about work environments. So how could you have a baby boomer and a millennial in a room working together? And what would that create in the work environment? A lot of the work that I do is actually getting younger people on boards. So either they be nonprofit boards or corporate boards. And one thing we work on is, what's the importance of having someone who is under 25 or under 30 on a board? And what's the importance of having someone who's over 60 on a board? How can we make sure that those groups are connected and that they're engaging? Right. So when we are talking about a diverse network, we're talking about understanding of other age groups' perspectives and their actions. And that can create empathy and it can create unity, right? Oftentimes there are what we call generational, almost like wars or conflicts, right? Because we might have assumptions about people who are under 20, or we might have assumptions about people that are over 80, right? We have these assumptions, but when we really get to know each other and our perspectives and our actions, a lot of good can come from that. And from an organizational perspective, when we think about age diversity, it can help create ROI. So, a significant turnover can create a lot of good on the outside, right? So if we have a diverse group of age, if someone retires, we're going to have younger people who already know how to do that work. They can step in. So a lot of good things can happen in return if we think about age from an organizational standpoint. So I want us to turn now to think a little about education, how this fits in with our educational piece here. Natalia, do you want to take this one?
So the thing we are going to think about right now is in education, the relationship between youth and the students, that will be the students' parents and guardians and educators and administration, is the key. Instead of older people making decisions, what if all ages have a seat at the table? How would that look like for you? Like in terms of education, all these things that Ashley spoke about, you can share with us in the chat right now, like how this would look like for you if all ages have a seat at the table. We would love to read you. I was muted. So as we have been reading you, good. Thank you. Yes, we have beautiful thoughts as all kinds of perspectives are voiced. Thank you, Crystal. And that we will reach more equitable decisions. Yes, that is so far maybe one of the main core thoughts when we think on bringing a intergenerational table. So that is very enrichful.
Yeah, and so I would love to hear from everyone. Maybe we could have someone from each breakout group sort of speak on what they talked about, because at the end of this, we really want to help make an impact, right? So taking what we've learned from groups today, how can we implement this in our own lives and make an impact in our community? That could be, you are in another meeting and you realize that the room is not diverse based on age. What would it be like if we brought someone else into the discussion? If maybe you're in a meeting and you realize that someone is not being engaged, they're sort of being ignored, how do you bring them up front and engage with them in that way? So I'd love to see if anyone would want to share what they talked about. And, we want this to be informal and conversational. So does anyone want to share?
Peter, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yes, and Krista and I we were in our group by ourselves, and we both kind of live in the same area, the Pacific Northwest and Canadian Gulf Islands. And we did have this kind of big idea about the reaching out systematically to retired teachers to help to connect, to be kind of the glue to build this big network, a community of schools. Like, you could call it a sister schools network or whatever. And it would deal with a bunch of problems at the same time. It would deal with the problem that the teachers feel that they don't have the time and energy to do such a thing, but the retired teachers do. And the retired teachers would still like to be in touch with the educational community. And then that's a way for the elders to, like intergenerational age, that would be a way to continue having them involved in the educational process. And also to reorient schools more towards project-based learning, where kids are doing interdisciplinary things in a multi-age setting, multi-age of students and older people from the community, to make school more interesting.
I love that. It's a way too of, retired teachers have all that experience and young people trust them. So bringing them into the fold and up front and center. I love that.
We're going to do it. Right, Krista?
I love that. Awesome. What else did people talk about?
Williams, I have you raised your hand. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I was in a group with Stephanie and Raikaya, and I just wanted to elevate something that it's important for us to surface our assumptions here, because we are speaking as if the notion of intergenerational diversity is foreign. There are cultures where that is the norm, and that difference rests in where the power resides. So I just wanted to put that out there. In that it is happening elsewhere, and it is the normal way of being in some cultures and in our space. When we were sharing, I mentioned the Maori peoples and how young children are seen to have the priest and the warrior spirit, and the adults, it is not their job to cancel one out, but to support and coach and let the child emerge. And so in that space, you could see that the power paradigm, they're not doing something to you, they're allowing you to be you. So when we, in the Western lens, when we pull that notion in about intergenerational diversity, it's not a foreign concept, because at the heart of human development is intergenerational diversity. And I think the HDR reports from way back 2015-14 have always written about that being one of the equity principles that reside in the basement rock of sustainability, is that intergenerational equity.
I love that. And where are you from? Where are you calling in from?
I am connecting from Atlantic, Canada. I'm currently in the capital of New Brunswick, which is Fredericton, right on the coast, just above Maine.
Wonderful. I love that. Yeah. And I think, when we're in the United States, intergenerational diversity is not very common. We still are in a very, very dominated systems where, even when we look at the school board, one of the few states in the United States that has youth on their school board is in Philadelphia, but those young people don't actually have a voting say. So we're still lacking it a lot. I think that's a great point that you made, that other countries are already ahead of the curve. And so what would it look like if experts on this topic came together and we could help each other? I think that's a great point. Other comments? I heard some really good things going into each room.
Hi. I think we're really lucky in education because I think where I live anyway, we see the value of different ages of teachers. And so, like Peter was saying, to be calling on retired teachers and for older teachers to be mentoring younger teachers is very natural and very valued. And I was saying in the small group in our jurisdiction, we started something. It was very small and organic, and we called it Connecting Generations. And it provided that framework and that structure for intergenerational work to happen within the high school and other schools as well. And it was totally needs-based. What are the kids looking for? Who would they like to speak with? And then this structure was there to connect sometimes classes with a professional or an individual with a certain experience. And sometimes it was one-on-one. It was really a beautiful thing. And then it grew because the leader of that was able to apply for grants. And then the Connecting Generations was able to grow and serve more kids in the school district. It's been underway now for 10 years, and we kind of wonder, what did we ever do without it? So it's interesting how you just start small with filling one need, and then how you can help it grow for the whole jurisdiction. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I love that, Krista. How this starting small, and this other concept we shared today about simplicity will bring us further away in our goals, also in terms of this intergenerational gathering. And I will rescue one of the comments that was spoke in one of the breakout rooms, that was about I forgot it.
Yeah, and I just want to comment
I forgot it. Yes, please, Ashley.
Yeah,
yes.
on something in the chat here from Crystal. This is really great. There's a way that working intergenerationally is a part of a way of thinking and being in the world, something that is more cultivated in some places than others. And there are ways that intergenerational contexts are part of organizing structures, like having students on the school board as voting members. Both things are needed. I love that that separation. I think that's a really great way of looking at it. And also to think about, how do we teach this in school with our own students, right? How can we make sure that this is something that's a part of their everyday? When I was in school, it really wasn't prioritized, right? So they would normally, when we were working in groups, they would just put us with our friends. So they would put us, whoever was near us, who we were sitting with. And so now as I've gotten older, I'm thinking of when I'm going into a group, how do I go to a table or somewhere where it's not where I would normally go? How do I start that separation now? And I think even doing breakout groups today, it was a randomized thing, right? But we were connecting with people who, we wouldn't have maybe been able to connect with in the first place. Yeah.
I was just going to say as well on the point that you just reiterated from Crystal about how, that can be included in classroom teaching, because I think a big part is, like similar to what was mentioned before about, the lived reality. In some cultures, it's very normal to have a very intergenerational everyday life as an interactions where you live in a multi-generational home, where you have your grandparents and different generations always there. And so you have the different perspectives there. But I would say probably in a lot of countries in the global north, because of, the way life is organized, like often that's not the case anymore. You don't necessarily always live with your grandparents or where you have that kind of constant engagement. So I'm thinking in terms of lessons, so I teach modern languages, where could you, kind of getting kids this is the first thought that comes to mind, but, thinking about, is there a project I could do where, students get to interview their grandparents and then people can share? Maybe if it's with another school in another country, you could compare some of the stories that come out and hear some of the perspectives of certain scenarios they might have experienced. Something we talked about in our group was about how, looking at shared issues together. So maybe there's even shared issues that could be discussed with older members of the society, where the young people could interview older members of the society and then feed back to each other.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. And you teach, you said modern languages. Oh, that's awesome. That's so wonderful. Oh, these are great. Yeah. Stories from elders are powerful. Yes. Absolutely. When my grandparents passed when I was relatively young. So I think having that relationship's really important, to hear their stories and to understand that, hey, when they're growing up, it looked very different than we're growing up, right? My generation grew up with the technology boom, right? And we've been a part of this, but looking at past generations, that's something that wasn't always there. Yes, this is great. This is wonderful. Any other comments or anything else anyone wants to share? Yeah, David.
Sure. I'll share. One of the things that I shared in my group, and this was I was a principal up until last month, but one of the ways that we used to build community intergenerationally is by having an event every year, family fiesta, where we would have parents, alumni, current students, teachers, staff, just everyone coming together and sharing an authentic experiences. Where there's activities that everyone can play together, there's food, there's events, there's it just kind of like creating a shared sense of community, and our community really responded to that. But another idea I shared that my group seemed responsive to was creating shared experiences. And so to give you an example of that, one of the things that my parents really enjoyed, and this I discovered about 8 or 9 years ago, when we were preparing for prom. And for those of you that aren't familiar with prom, it's like the end of year, elegant dance where everyone dresses up. Some of the parents had shared with me that because they didn't go to high school in their countries, they didn't get to have this experience. And so then we started hosting events just for parents, so that they could experience those events kind of like with their children, but not with their children. And so we would have a high school, like a parent prom, and then the kids would serve the dinner, but the prom was for the parents. And, it was Spanish music and music that they got to pick. And it was, creating those shared moments of community where then the parents understand like why it's so important for the kids. And then the kids get to see their parents, dressing up and just having fun. And so anyway, those were just some of the ways that we built intergenerational community at my school.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. It's amazing. Yeah. Jay Williams.
Thanks, Ashley. I was wondering if in your work you looked at the Montessori education system as an exemplar, like a standing exemplar of intergenerational diversity. I've had the pleasure of having students, their parents, have them go right through Montessori up till middle school, and then they joined in high school. And what I observed was a different way of being with those kids, with those learners. And I don't think it didn't look the same as those students that moved with the same age cohort for, the first 8 years of their formative years. So I thought that just came to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great model. And for those who don't know, it's a way for young children to develop natural interests and do it via natural activities rather than have formal teaching methods. So it was really popular in the early 1900s. The woman that founded it, and then the U.S. has had a range of different ways of implementing it. But that's a really great point. Excellent. Natalia, do you want to continue here or have some closing thoughts?
Yeah, well, and the closure thought, I will just say that it has been very it has given me a lot of empowerment to hear you all, and that I hope we were able to help you get to some thoughts that will help your further work. And I will just rescue these concepts that we were hearing about, this connecting generations and the confidence it gives you when you are in an intergenerational group, and the simplicity that we need to just make these small steps that will help us move forward or towards what we are planning. And what I just want to point out is that everything can start as simple, and it will bring us joy, and it will be very enrichful always to have these conversations happening. So thank you all for sharing today with us. It has been very lovely for Ashley and I, and to have you and to provoke these thoughts. And yes, I hope and I wish you to have more intergenerational happenings, whatever it can be, a meeting, it can be thing you need to, but intergenerational will be the word to take to start building more diverse communities. And yes, that's all. I wish you a very nice end of the third day of the summit.